Butter, you're the reason why I am my way. You're the reason why I rip my shirts, why I eat at the buffet. Butter, you got your very own kind of nice. We all live inside a butter world. Oh, butter, butter, gonna eat it by the stick tonight. Gonna eat out this world. Oh, butter, I'm about to take a bite, 'cause I want that salty cream. What I dream about all night. Butter dreaming. I'm about to take a bite, 'cause I want that salty cream. What I dream about all.
Welcome back to another episode of Buttercast. Man, that's such a great intro song.
I love it.
It
Shout
gets
out
me.
to
Shout out to Rolling Blue.
Rolling Blue.
Yeah, terrific song. It gets me pumped up every single time, man. I
Yeah.
swear.
I'm about to have a stick of butter.
Yeah, butter dreaming.
Bite into the butter.
Yeah. So a little change of plan. We had originally scheduled a farmer to talk to tonight. Unfortunately, they fell sick with the flu, and we've rescheduled for next week. So as a last minute option, we pulled this episode together. It's something that we've been meaning to do for a while. It's a study club.
Study club with
Yeah.
Butterfueled.
So it's a great show planned for you today. It's by no means. Yeah. What's up, Frank?
What's up, Frank?
Shout out, Frank. Thanks for tuning in, man. It's time to learn some science. Today we put on our lab coats. This is a very serious show, as always. And if you like science, you're gonna like this. We're gonna-
Studies.
Yeah, we're gonna review a study on that from the journal. What's the JAMA? JAMA is the Journal of American
Association of Cardiology. Well, JAMA Cardiology.
JAMA. Oh, we have Courtney in the house. What's up, Courtney? You still at work?
Well, welcome, Courtney. Hopefully you're not at work.
I think she just tunes into the show to procrastinate her responsibilities. Yeah, JAMA Cardiology. Okay, what did JAMA stand for? Journal of American Medical Association, something like that.
Yes.
Yes.
There we go. Definitely at work.
Yeah.
Frank says hi.
Yeah. Look, you guys are making friends already. We're making friends. You guys are making friends.
Yeah.
Frank, are you in the Discord yet, man? We haven't seen you show up to the Wednesday meetings.
Oh yeah, is Frank on the Discord?
What's going on, man? All right. Well, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, make sure to like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. We're everywhere. We're taking over. And please like and comment for the algorithms. The algo lords don't like us. They want to keep you sick and uninformed. And we want you strong and healthy for what's about to come.
Precisely.
Yeah. Frank says, I'm not, but I shall join. Yes, sir, you shall. You shall join.
Yes, you shall.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. So here we have the study.
Study. Association of lipid, inflammatory, and metabolic markers with age at onset for incident coronary heart disease in women.
Yeah, lots of fancy words. So when we hear lipid, it has anything to do with fats, inflammatory, inflammation, not good. Metabolic biomarkers. So we'll be diving into those.
Mm-hmm.
With age at onset of incident coronary heart disease.
Yeah, so basically, coronary heart disease was initiated or happened.
Yeah, happened, initiated. That's a good way to put it. In women,
In women,
specifically.
yeah.
Okay. So men, take a seat.
Men don't matter.
Yeah. This is how to give a woman a heart attack. So men, take note.
All right.
Yeah, it's a good paper. It's a good paper. Uh, we'll see. The questions that everyone always has: what about the cholesterol? What about the LDL? Was the LDL, how good of a biomarker was LDL in this study, right? So there we go. Importance risk profiles for premature coronary heart disease are unclear, right? That's what they're trying to figure out here. How do they determine a baseline risk profile for these women?
Yeah. Stratified by age. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to read?
Okay. Yeah. So I'll read. So the design, setting, and participants. Prospective cohort of U.S. female health professionals participating in the Women's Health Study was conducted. The median follow-up was 21.4 years. Included 28,024 women aged 45 or older without known cardiovascular disease. Baseline profiles were obtained from April 30th, 1993 to January 24th, 1996. So between 93 and 96, this is when they were enrolling people into this study. And then they conducted analyses between October 2017 and October 2020. So they collected data all throughout October 2020.
Hmm. Okay, yeah, I see. So from 93 to 2020, so that's 27 years, and they're telling you the median follow-up was 21.4 years. Okay,
Mhm.
across the 28,000 women.
Yeah.
Cool, interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, roughly a 20-year study, uh, just to figure out what happened to these people as they aged.
Hmm.
More than 50 clinical lipid, inflammatory, and metabolic risk factors and biomarkers. Right. So they were collecting data on 50 clinical lipid and inflammatory and metabolic factors.
Yeah, pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, a bunch of stuff, a lot of data getting collected. 4 age groups, right? Less than 55, 55 to 65, 65 to 75, and greater than 75. And adjusted hazard ratios were calculated using stratified Cox proportional hazard regression models with age as the time scale, adjusting for clinical factors. Women contributed to different age groups over time. So as women got older, they fell into different age categories, basically.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense.
All right. So the results section, it's pretty cool. We'll try to skip through a lot of the confidence intervals in order not to confuse. But the highest adjusted hazard ratio. So yeah, they talked about the adjusted hazard ratio up here. AHR was diabetes. Um, that was the highest adjusted hazard ratio, diabetes, um, with a relative risk of 10.71. So that's 10 times. So if you had diabetes, you had 10.7 times higher risk of getting heart disease. Right?
Wow. Yeah. So that's like what, 1,000%?
About, yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah.
About, yeah. Uh,
Crazy.
yeah. If you were younger than 55 years. So if you had diabetes under 55, you have that risk. Um,
Yeah. To 3.47, to an adjusted hazard ratio of 3.47 in
mhm.
those 75 years or older.
Yeah. So if you were 75, that adjusted hazard ratio came down to 3.47.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about like the implications of being older and seeing lower risk, relative risk, further on. Um, then they highlight that the next um, risk factor is metabolic syndrome, adjusted hazard ratio of 6, so that's 6 times relative risk. Hypertension, 4.58. So if you have hypertension, you had 4.58 times probability of risk. Obesity, 4.3, so just right next to hypertension. And smoking, 3.9.
There you go. Is anyone surprised by these findings? I don't think so.
Yeah, so far, no mention of LDL. But there is mention of LDL, and we'll cover that. Next point is myocardial infarction in a parent before age 60 years was associated with a 1.5 to 2-fold risk in participants up to 75 years. So this sentence over here is basically saying if your parent is under 60, so the study participant is enrolled, if their parent under 60 had a myocardial infarction,
Which is just a fancy word of saying heart attack.
heart attack, probably should start using that.
Mhm.
Yeah, if your parent is under 60 and your parent had a heart attack, your risk was between 1.5 to 2 times the risk, right? So 50% to 100%.
Yeah. So are you saying heart attacks are genetic?
It's the gene's fault.
Yeah.
And then from approximately the 50 biomarkers, lipoprotein insulin resistance had the highest standardized adjusted hazard ratio of 6.4. So from the biomarkers they collected, lipoprotein insulin resistance gave you a 6.4 relative risk in women younger than 55, and it attenuated with age. So it lowered that 6.4 lowered with age. In comparison, there was weaker but significant association with coronary heart disease in women younger than 55 for low density lipoprotein cholesterol. So if you're younger than 55, your LDL cholesterol was associated with heart disease 1.38 times, so 38%. And then non-high density lipoprotein cholesterol had a slightly higher. So whatever number your non-HDL is, so take your cholesterol minus HDL,
Mhm.
that number had a risk factor of 1.67, so 67%. Apolipoprotein B, 1.89. Triglycerides, 2.14. So triglycerides being 2 times or 100% higher risk factor. And inflammatory markers, 1.2 to 1.8, all attenuating with age.
Mhm.
And then there were some biomarkers had similar CHD age associations like physical activity, lipoprotein little a, total HDL, while a few had no association with CHD, coronary heart disease, at any age. All right.
Yeah, it's pretty comprehensive, lots of numbers. And just to highlight again, diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, smoking, these were like these consistently show up to having the highest hazard ratios amongst these population. And then as far as the biomarkers, the measured biomarkers, LPIR, lipoprotein insulin resistance, had the highest association at 6.4. Okay, so this is LPIR, lipoprotein insulin resistance, is a measurement that profiles your lipoproteins. So it takes 6 different measurements. So it considers LDL particle numbers and size, HDL particle numbers and size, and then what they call VLDL particle numbers and size again, right? So they look at basically your 3 lipoproteins and they look at the size and the number. So that's 6 markers they use. They come up with this profile to profile people who show insulin resistance versus those who don't. So if you've ever taken this test, I believe the numbers are given from 0 to 100, and 100 being a sign that you're at risk of, well, that you have insulin resistance, basically. So the
Mhm.
higher the number, the more likely it is that you have insulin resistance. So you can see how it takes the whole context of the lipoproteins. It doesn't just look at LDL, at isolated LDL as a marker,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool metric, and we'll do some investigation uh, as to can you do some lab work that measures this, because it
Hmm.
seems like a pretty important biomarker, more telling biomarker, aside from the obvious being obese and diabetic.
Yeah, which again, no one's surprised by that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And well, I don't see any marker for genes. Well, they said a parental heart attack.
Courtney says it's fine. We just have to stop eating eggs.
That's never the answer.
Certainly not.
Rejected.
All right.
Okay, so we'll read this section from the paper. Why is this important? Okay, just for context. So, well, before we start, cardiovascular disease is the number one killer in the US. It's also the number one killer worldwide.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's funny because last night we made a post about what do you think would happen if the whole world just ate steak and eggs and they shut off all the noise around. I would make the case that, within a year, people could completely like overturn their life, get super healthy, and we'd probably see a drastic reduction, if not complete elimination, of people dying from heart disease.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a bold
That's-
thing to say, but hey, you'd probably see the collapse of big pharma too, and health insurance companies, and lots of other things that they're working hard for that not to happen. But anyways, that's why it matters, right? So,
Yeah.
from the paper, cardiovascular disease, which includes coronary heart disease, is a key factor in premature mortality. Premature CHD generally refers to CHD occurring before age 65 in women or before age 55 in men, to distinguish it from conventional CHD, which occurs at older ages. Therefore, identifying individuals at risk of premature CHD is essential to reducing the burden of premature morbidity and mortality. Okay, so what they're saying is, premature CHD is important to be able to tell when is this happening so as to prevent it. Okay,
Yeah.
so then they go on to say, despite advances in CHD prevention and management, outcomes among younger adults have been suboptimal. Okay, so remember, younger adults, that's 55 and younger. Although CHD mortality of US adults younger than 55 years declined by 5.5% in men and 4.6% in women from 1979 to 1989, over the subsequent 20 years, mortality for women was virtually unchanged. Okay, keep in mind they're saying 5.5% in men, 4.6% in women from 1979 to 1989. So these are rates, right? So while the rates declined, that doesn't mean that the whole magnitude has declined. And then for the subsequent 20 years, numbers have been unchanged. So they go on to describe the same situation for other countries. They say similarly in the UK, younger adults showed minimal or no improvement in CHD mortality over a 20-year period from 1985 to 2005. Okay, so same deal. There's no sign of improving CHD mortality. It's either only staying the same at the same rates, which means, as population increases, the magnitude of these cases is also increasing. And there's no sign of it improving, right? No, there's something's not working. Okay. So there's also scarce information on determinants of premature CHD, particularly in women. Most biomarker studies of premature CHD have been cross-sectional and reported differences in the levels of low-density lipoprotein, LDL cholesterol, high-density lipoprotein, HDL cholesterol, and triglycerides for premature versus conventional CHD, as well as differences by sex for premature CHD. Okay, so emerging evidence suggests that CHD risk may also be associated with novel biomarkers related to lipoprotein subfractions, inflammation, and metabolic pathways, and not merely with levels of standard risk factors. Okay, so in that little paragraph, what they're saying is, the previous biomarkers that have been used, so looking at LDL and HDL and triglycerides alone, has not been good enough. There's emerging evidence that there's new markers, right? New metrics they can use that look into the lipoprotein subfractions, inflammation, and metabolic pathways that give you better information than these other three lipoprotein metrics that people have been using forever, right? And no surprise, the result of that is the everlasting fear of LDL, right? Your doctor wanting to put you on statins is because he subscribes to this model, this previous model.
Yeah.
Yeah, this paper is concerned with finding better markers to predict premature CHD, right? So there you go. To address these knowledge gaps, we investigated the relative risk of more than 50 clinical risk factors and lipid, lipoprotein, inflammatory, and metabolic biomarkers with incident CHD among 28,024 apparently healthy women in the Women's Health Study during the median follow-up of 21.4 years. Okay, so all of this is just context, guys. Key takeaways. The old markers were not very good. They're looking at 50 markers in this study to see if any of them stick. Basically, they're taking 50 tests, they're throwing it to the ceiling, see what sticks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the sample size is 28,000 healthy women
Yeah.
over a 20-year period.
Yeah. So
That-
that's good.
Yeah.
That's one of the strengths of this study.
Yes. Yes.
The large population.
Large population. All right. So yeah, then it goes on to talk about the methods, but which is basically, we gather a bunch of women across 4 different age groups, and then collected blood and initial assessments, initial markers.
Yeah. So they were probed consistently throughout this whole period.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Very different from like a food frequency questionnaire. At no point were they asked what were they eating, how many eggs were they having per week. They did ask them certain questions. They had to weigh themselves, but I suppose they asked them, if they smoke, if they're active or inactive, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Which is less likely, I suppose, to be vulnerable to bias or lies, recall bias.
Yeah. Recall bias, which is what you see in your food frequency questionnaires.
Yeah.
Right? Recall bias meaning how good are you at remembering?
Yeah. So a little bit about the population of the study. So, no, it was like 25,000 women. Okay. The bulk of them being white women. That this was where was this? This was in the UK. So I suppose that's representative of the population over there. Yeah. Little
Yeah.
room for the minorities: Black, Hispanic, Asian, and other. Aliens.
Aliens.
Yeah. The lizard people.
So there were 115 of them.
115 lizards.
All right.
Yeah.
And some other data like BMI, standard deviation, smoking, diabetes.
Yeah. Information they collected, blood pressure. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, cholesterol lowering treatment. Very interesting.
Yeah. Were they on statins?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. 2 blood draw categories: less than 10 years and greater than 10 years.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
No surprises here. And get to the juicy part.
Oh yeah.
Part that we care about. The results.
Yes.
Whenever people present you with evidence that something is harmful, you got to ask, what's the actual human outcome data, right? To quote the great Layne Norton, He gets some things right, some things wrong. But what is the actual human outcome data? Yeah, so I believe this is a forest plot showing you just like it's an illustration of the risk.
Yeah. So you have your risk factors here on the left. So BMI, overweight, obese, smoker, diabetes, so on and so forth. And then on the right, the plot itself, you have basically two sections, one that says favors protection and the other one that favors risk. So they plotted the results on either side. So the x-axis is your hazard ratio. So if your hazard ratio is less than 1, you fall on the left side of this chart, which means favors protection. One easy standout here is the HDL. As we know, a higher HDL is associated with protection, or less heart disease or protection against heart disease.
Yeah.
So that's why it falls here on the left. And then stuff on the right is considered favors risk. So increases your risk of heart disease. As the study said, diabetes, that's one that clearly stands out.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. So you have your 4 age groups, less than 55, 55 to 64, 65 to 74, and greater than 75.
I think if you just look from right to left, you can tell, those that stand out are diabetes, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, obesity, being overweight.
Current smoker, hypertension.
Current
you said
smoker. Yeah.
And then physical inactivity. That one has a wide range. Overweight.
Again, no surprises here.
So this section of clinical risk factors, just from a graph, from a visual perspective, you can see that basically all of these are greater risk factors than your lipid readings.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, because your lipid readings are floating around 2, between 1 and 2 mostly. Some of them in between 2, the level 2 hazard ratio.
And the ones that stand out more than LDL cholesterol alone, you have your total to HDL cholesterol ratio, triglycerides, and your triglyceride to HDL cholesterol ratio.
Yep.
Okay, so there you go.
Yep. And look at the infamous or famous LDL cholesterol level. It hasn't really come up. I mean, it's here, you can see it, but there are plenty of other things that are more telling than your LDL cholesterol level. Yep. I keep losing the mouse.
That's what she said.
All right. So this second chart is a bit of a drill down into the lipids. So you start looking more closely at your lipids, or your lipoproteins. Again, similar format, favors protection, favors risk. And you have several categories here on the left, from total LDL particles, total TRL particles. So that's your triglyceride-rich lipoprotein.
Yes.
Particles.
Also commonly referred to as VLDL.
Yeah. And total HDL particles.
So there you go. Very striking difference. Total HDL, you'll find that on the left side, except for small HDL. Interesting. Yeah. What do you suppose is going on there? Could it be that these HDL particles were damaged?
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? Because it's basically all of HDL is good except for small HDL particles. So if the particle size of your HDL is small, that seems to favor risk. But if you have medium size or large, that is protection. Um, Total TRL out of this category. Let's see. See if I can draw a box here. Total TRL particles. That seems significant. Large TRL, medium TRL also seems significant. And very small TRL particles, TRL cholesterol, TRL triglycerides, and TRL particle size. We can cover that. And then on the, I guess that one that really matters, or for in terms of like conventional knowledge, is LDL, because that's the one that everyone talks about, LDL. So in LDL, if you look at the large LDL particles, seems neutral, right? So if your total LDL particle reading was entirely made up of large LDL particles, that is neutral to, I would say that's just neutral.
Yeah, seems like you're chilling.
You're chilling, as well as medium LDL particles, also neutral, slight inclination towards risk. The real culprit here is small LDL particle size.
Whoa, there you go.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a pattern now?
Yeah.
Small LDL particle, more risk. Small HDL particles, more risk.
Yeah.
What is supposed to make these particles small?
Yeah.
Right? Could it be the oxidation of these LDL particles, these HDL particles, from reactive oxygen species?
Yeah.
Glycation of these particles, right? These particles getting damaged. There you go. Look at the pattern.
Yeah. So, yeah. Agreed. Results. Of the 28,000 participants included in the analysis, 26,000 participants did not develop CHD, and incident CHD occurred in 1,500 participants during the study period.
Yeah. So pay attention. Yeah, 5.5% of the participants actually developed CHD. Okay, so that's a big group. 28,000 participants, and then only 5.5% over the whole 20-year period developed CHD. Okay, so keep that in mind, right?
Yes. During the follow-up period of 21.4 years, CHD incident rates per 100 person years ranged from 0.7 for CHD onset at less than 55 years to 0.62 for CHD onset at 75 or older. So the incidence rate was 0.07 if you start at less than 55, and it increases to 0.62 once you're 75 or older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, per 100 person years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, yeah. So what that's saying is, out of the 5.5% people who developed CHD, the bulk of them were at the older population, and then there was a small percentage of them at the younger population. Of course, no surprise there, right? As we see it, age is definitely a risk factor also involved, right?
Yeah.
So there you go. Clinical risk factors. So diabetes had the highest relative risk for incident CHD onset at any age. For CHD onset in women younger than 55 years, the Model 1 adjusted hazard ratio was 10.71 and attenuated with age with a risk of 3.47 at onset in those 75 years or older. Increased risks were also noted for CHD onset in women younger than 55 years for metabolic syndrome with an adjusted hazard ratio of 6.09, hypertension 4.58, obesity 4.33, and smoking 3.92. all of these also attenuated with age. Okay. Yeah. So this part, it was we read from the results initially, but no surprises there. What did you expect?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you like eating too many carbs, too many sugar, if you have diabetes, what do you expect?
Oh yeah, here the chart on the right shows you the LPI score, and that one is
Whoa.
it's clearly very visibly a big standout out of the metabolic and inflammatory markers that they measured. LPI's R score is the most telling out of this group.
Yeah, you can see it completely stands out. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
All the other markers are between 1 and 2 LPIR. For the younger population, mind you, which should be especially striking, right?
yeah,
Because the younger population has a lower incidence of the coronary heart disease. Okay.
yeah,
So premature CHT, right, is what we're looking at.
yeah,
Premature just meaning you're too young for that to happen to you,
yes,
basically. Like it
yeah,
shouldn't be happening,
yeah,
kind of like how we have premature diabetes now, you know, teenagers, kids, premature non-alcoholic fatty liver, kids developing NAFLD. Come on.
yeah, yes. So yeah, similar to triglyceride levels, association for TRL particle size, total TRL particles, and TRL triglyceride levels were associated with incident CHD in all age groups, with stronger association in younger age groups. So basically, TRL particle size, TRL particles, and TRL triglycerides had high association in age groups, in all age groups. Now, for HDL, no significant difference was noted for total HDL particles with CHD by increasing age. However, HDL particle subfractions, variable risk associations were noted that were more prominent for CHD at younger ages. So subfractions, remember, where you have your HDL, large, medium, and small. That's what they're referring to here. Most HDL particles had an inverse association with CHD, except for small HDL particles, which had a positive association, similar to HDL cholesterol. Average HDL particle size was associated inversely with the risk of CHD, especially for women at younger ages, a risk that also attenuated with older age.
There you go. And we kept seeing this consistently pop up everywhere, right? The risk factors being attenuated with older age.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this paragraph is just highlighting the how small HDL is actually negative, which is
Yeah.
what we highlighted here in this graph to the right. If I could get the mouse, there we go. Small HDL particles. The mouse doesn't like me. There we go.
Keep selecting everything.
Yeah, small HDL particles.
Yeah. Dun, dun, dun.
Boom, 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 boom. All right, scrolling down. All right, this is the results table.
Yeah, this is the juiciest part of the whole paper. Table 2, associations of risk factors and biomarkers with incident CHD by age at onset. So you can see how, everything's stratified by age, the 4 groups. And then on the left side, you'll look at the clinical risk factors, right? So things like obese, current smoker, diabetes. We've highlighted here uh, basically the highest numbers on like the whole table, but the most striking one is diabetes, of course. So for people under 55 years of age, for women under 55 years of age, the associated risk was 10.7 times. From 55 to 65, it was 10.92 times, and then from 65 to 75 was 4.49, and above 75 years of age, 3.47. Okay, so again, you see how the risk attenuates with increasing age, right? From 10.7 to 3.47. However, if you notice, at all the risk factors for ages above 75, you will see that diabetes still stands out, right? If you look at everything across the age of nice, yeah, there you go. Good job. Good job.
you,
Yeah.
you like my mouse selecting
I
skills?
like the cross you just made. There you go. So you see, so the what you should focus on there is above 75 years of age, the relative risks are still consistent across the age groups, right? The only thing you're seeing is the risk factors attenuate because age itself is another risk factor, right? So it doesn't mean that you're safer from diabetes at age 75. It just means that at age 75, like you're dying. Like something like you're getting sick, right?
Yeah.
Like something's killing you when you get older.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah, to be 100% real, at that age, something is going to happen.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah, eventually everyone in this earth dies.
Yeah. But I want to go out in battle, man. I don't want to go out in a hospital bed.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But other clinical risk factors that stand out: metabolic syndrome, 6.09 for 55 and younger, all the way down to 1.79 for 75 and older. Hypertension, right? 4.58, all the way down to 1.64 for 75 and older. Blood pressure, there you go, 2.24, 1.26, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Physical inactivity seems to have some impact, but it's not multiples like 2 or greater,
Yeah.
right? Parental age also, if you again, so if your parent had a heart attack and your parent is less than 60, then your risk factor is double, or 100%, between the first two age groups, and then it attenuates on the older age groups. And I mean, let's just highlight here LDL, right? Because this is like, not that LDL, this row over here, because this is the one that everyone gets scared about. This is the one that people will always ask you. This is the one that doctors only look at despite improving. You took away your diabetes, you drop your weight, you drop your right, you stop having hypertension, right? So you got rid of all this table, and this entire table above, you cured all of this.
Yeah, you even quit smoking, man.
You even quit smoking.
Wow, congrats to you. You quit.
Yeah. None of that matters. If your LDL is high, they have to prescribe you, and suddenly you are a concern. While this table right in front of you is proving to you that these are the significant biomarkers. These are the significant clinical categories that truly matter in terms of heart disease.
Yeah, it's crazy. The amount of people that message us saying like, "Oh my God, my LDL is high." I'm like, "Well, what happened?" They're like, "Oh, I switched to keto, I switched to carnivore, I dropped 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds, but my doctor wants to put me on statins." Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't blame these people because, right? It's the conventional knowledge. It's what we know. It's what we've been told for decades that matters. Your bad LDL, right? Your bad LDL. Your bad cholesterol. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Like everyone's heard of the bad cholesterol, which is supposed to be LDL, which is very unfair for LDL because you'd realize if you actually understood what LDL does, what it is, it's actually your friend. Cholesterol is your friend. It's good for you. Your body makes it for yourself, right? We address this multiple times on our Instagram page. There's a whole cholesterol highlight that describes how cholesterol works in your body, what LDL does. But to put it,
Yes.
yeah, nice and briefly, LDL is like this little boat. LDL carries triglycerides and it carries cholesterol and it distributes this all throughout your body. By the way, your body makes cholesterol, like all your cells and tissues make cholesterol. Your red blood cells are covered in cholesterol.
Sounds like a very important nutrient.
Yeah, you'd think.
Yeah. Very important.
Our cell membranes are made from cholesterol. Okay. And cholesterol is not the same as LDL, right? In case that wasn't clear to you before. They're two separate things. LDL is the lipoprotein that carries cholesterol. Cholesterol is like this waxy, fatty substance that our cell membranes are made up from, that our hormones are made up from. It's so good for you, man.
Yes.
Cholesterol is so good for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, moving on to the lipid section again.
Yeah, so that's when you get into like the finer detail of it, which still matters. Like there's still a better lipoprotein profile, and there's still relatively better profile to have, all things considered, right? If besides being obese and overweight and smoking, yada yada yada.
Yeah. Yes. So again, yeah, LDL. If that comes up elevated, then you can look at, do a more in-depth analysis, which is this section over here, LDL particles. Uh, Total LDL particles, large, medium, and small. So their size. Um, so you can look at the total number. That will tell you a little bit. Total number of particles. But then if you drill down and look at the size, you can see that if it's made out of large LDL particles, the risk is neutral, right? 0.02, 0.04, 0.01, 0.1, right? So if you come up with high LDL and the particle size is large, there is no risk. It's neutral.
There you go. Yeah, that fluffy LDL. It's good for you, man.
Large and fluffy. Same for medium. Medium, slightly higher, but really this is not, I wouldn't consider this meaningful, like 1.13, 16, 08, 99. It's like all in the same range as a
Mhm.
large one. But where it really stands out, right? It goes from neutral to 2 times the risk, double
Yeah.
the risk once you start looking at small LDL particles. If your LDL reading number is majority small, and then or if you have small, that's bad, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Like that, the numbers here are pretty clear and pretty straightforward, telling you if you're concerned about LDL, you can drill down and check the size. We also highlighted here LDL particle average size. Um, I think this is also as significant, right? LDL particle average size. I think they mentioned that. Well, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
because of what we just explained.
Mhm.
Small, not good. And then triglyceride-rich lipoprotein particles. Total. If your total TRL seems to have higher risk, very large. Also, let me see.
Yeah, so the data for the TRL is more mixed because if it's very large, there's like a marginal risk, but if it's medium, it's the highest.
Hmm.
Then if it's small, it's protective, but then if it's very small, it's again high.
Mm,
So that's a bit more complicated
yeah.
because of the way that the TRL lipoproteins work, but it's a it's a bit of a mixed salad.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the trend is more clear on the LDL and the HDL particles,
Yes.
but
Yes.
the TRL still makes sense. It's just kind of complicated to explain.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll we'll probably cover that further ahead. And then the last one is the HCl particles. Again, HCl, I think it's commonly known, and I think it's okay, given the data here, it's okay to accept that HDL is protective, right? So you're
Yeah,
seeing a number less than 1, so that's being protective. Uh, the total number of HDL, very protective. Large HDL, protective. Medium HDL, also protective. But small, that's where you see a risk increase.
that's right.
1.6, 1.4, 1.2, 0.09.
Problematic.
Problematic.
Yeah,
Yes. And then for inflammatory biomarkers, CRP, that's probably a very common one. Probably you've heard it. C-reactive protein is just, these are just general inflammation biomarkers. One that is quite new to the scene is glyc-A. And this one's that they were able to find, oh,
Oh,
they were able to find uh, one a relative risk of 1.84, 1.6, 0.4, 0.1. So out of this list, this seems to be, it's more telling than LDL.
yeah. There you go. Yeah, and again, look at the numbers. Most of these are between 1 and 2,
Yeah.
right? So when we get to LPIR,
LPIR.
there you go, 6.4 out of all the biomarkers. LPIR clearly stands out for younger people, especially, right? Particularly striking in the younger group, 55 and younger group.
Yeah.
LPIR. So again, lipoprotein, insulin resistance.
Lipoprotein insulin resistance. So if you score high here, you have 6 times the relative risk, right? Remember what it was for LDL? It was 1.38 if you're under 55. So you go from 1.38 to 6.4. That's a very significant difference. And this is what this study does a good job. It puts into numbers what people should really focus on.
Exactly. Yeah, it's addressing the old school paradigm and saying, hey, look, again, they got 50 biomarkers and they looked at what's stuck, right? They didn't come at this with any bias.
Yeah. Yes. All right. I'm going to scroll down.
In a population of women.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Of all approximately 50 lipid, inflammatory, and metabolic biomarkers examined, the IR score was associated with the highest standardized relative risk of incident CHD in most age groups in Model 1, adjusted hazard ratio of 6.4, attenuating with age.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
So there you go.
yeah,
You know,
yeah. 6 times the risk. Additional analysis. Let me see. Population attributable risk. Okay, discussion.
Yeah. So this is a juicy part of the paper. If you pull up this paper, go read the discussion. If there's any fact checking you're going to do of the information we shared, you should go straight to the discussion because everything else is just context, right?
Yeah,
And I
just
mean,
yeah,
yeah, and we're showing you guys what the paper says. We're not making anything up. Pretty much just reading and interpreting it, so it makes sense for you. And don't worry, we'll tie it up all really nice and clean at the end, right? Because
yes,
it's technical. It's very technical,
it's
right?
very technical.
No one. People hear like, oh my god, bad cholesterol. Your bad cholesterol is high. Your first reaction is not, oh, I'm gonna go pull up the latest study, sit down and read it and understand what is actually going on with my blood lipids. It's like, no, I'm gonna listen to the doctor and take my statins and shut up, right? Because
Yeah.
the doctor should have already done this part for you, right? Except they don't.
This seems kind of important, very important.
Yeah.
Right?
I'd like my doctor to be up to date with the latest research.
Yeah. Yeah. Before they prescribe you statins, and then suddenly you start losing your mind because statins have a side effect of memory loss.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
Yeah. Dementia. Yeah. That'll be a great episode to do in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, this series of episodes we're starting now is the study club, right? So they are going to be the study club is going to be very technical, very scientific. We're going to dive into papers like this. Our goal is to learn and become more technically proficient in these papers, and to have you along for the ride too, so that you can learn with us. And then
Absolutely.
whenever we have to defend this way of eating against others, as we will have to do in the future at
Yeah.
some point, when we have to debate these morally repugnant vegans, we'll be well armed with the truth. Nothing but the truth, guys. We're not making anything up.
Yes.
Anyhow, back to the paper.
Anyhow, of the clinical factors, diabetes was associated with the highest relative risk for incident CHD in women younger than 55, then hypertension, obesity, and smoking. So remember that top table that we talked about? Those were the highest risk factors for premature CHD. Of approximately 50 measured biomarkers examined in women with CHD younger than 55, the LPIR score reflecting insulin resistance had the highest magnitude of relative risk, greater than 6. Right. So you have your clinical factors, which is obesity, hypertension. You can measure all of these. And then you go on to your LPIR score, also pretty high, 6 times the risk. All of these had greater than the association of LDL cholesterol levels, standard lipid levels, or inflammatory biomarkers.
Boom, mic drop.
Mic drop. Basically all of this is more important than LDL cholesterol levels.
Yeah, but let's ignore that, so we can continue prescribing statins,
Yes.
and hypertension medication. Guys, go look up the top 5 prescribed medications in the US. I think like 3 out of 5 are high blood pressure medication. Might be 2 out of 5. There's like 2 or 3 are like hypertension. One of them is statins, and another one is going to be like thyroid medication, because everyone is hypothyroid nowadays.
Yes.
For some reason.
Yeah. The study findings underscore the importance of diabetes and insulin resistance as major determinants for premature CHD, as well as other modifiable major risk factors that can be addressed with lifestyle or preventative interventions.
Wow. These authors are based.
Yes. Yeah. So worry about insulin resistance, worry about diabetes, and this can be addressed with lifestyle or preventative interventions. We had a guest, No Carbs Nation.
Yeah, shout out No Carbs. No Carbs Nation. Yeah.
No Carbs Nation. Great guy. He cured his diabetes, type 2 diabetes.
and
right?
a host of other issues.
And a host of other issues.
Yeah, diabetes is the number one risk factor for pretty much everything, guys.
Yeah, it's a debilitating disease. It means your body gets weakened, more susceptible to any other disease.
Absolutely. And if you go ahead and look at the top 6 causes of mortality worldwide, number 1 is going to be heart disease, of course. Number 6 is going to be diabetes. And diabetes is a risk factor for the top 5. Okay, so you have people die just of diabetes, and then you have people dying of 5 other things with diabetes.
Yeah, because diabetes enabled this, far more dangerous and progressive diseases.
Yeah, yeah. And this, obviously, a huge risk factor for heart disease, ginormous risk factor for, the beer bug, which everyone was terrified of not too long ago.
Not too long ago.
Pepperidge Farm remembers. Yeah. So it's funny how the paper, feel like when you read the paper, it just says over and over again, like the same things.
Yeah.
So you just really, really drill it in,
Yeah.
in case there was any confusion. Here it is again.
Yeah.
Anyhow, let's continue.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Yeah. So this section over here. No, sorry, not that section. Just finding my mouse. Yeah. In particular, for premature CHD risk, both size and number matter for LDL, with somewhat stronger association than found for LDL cholesterol. So yeah, this is what we were just talking about earlier. Looking at LDL alone is not. You can find more meaning than just looking at LDL alone, and that is found by looking at the size and the number. Those have a stronger association than just LDL. Then talking about inflammatory biomarkers comes in glyc-A, as well as intercellular adhesion molecule 1 and fibrinogen were more strongly associated with premature CHD, suggesting that inflammation that accompanies excess adiposity states, such as diabetes and insulin resistance, could be even more relevant for CHD occurring at younger ages. So again, the goal of this paper is to find out what could cause CHD in young people, premature. They're saying here glyc-A and intercellular adhesion molecule 1,
Yeah.
and fibrinogen.
So that's ICAM1, and fibrinogen. Yeah, ICAM1, which was listed in the table.
It was in the table above. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what you'll find the test for. ICAM1 and fibrinogen. Yeah, these are very niche tests, I believe, though. Like this would be very expensive biomarkers to get tested.
Yeah.
And very likely your insurance won't want to cover them.
Yeah. Yeah. Which it's interesting. It's an interesting biomarker, but basically saying that you'll have high glyc-A, ICAN, and fibrinogen if you have diabetes or insulin resistance. So, right, get rid of your diabetes and get rid of your insulin resistance. This biomarker is not going to show up as high. In the present study, insulin resistance as measured by the LPIR score had the strongest association with premature CHD out of approximately 50 novel and standard biomarkers examined. Previous studies reported that LPIR was associated with incident diabetes, both in the presence and absence of statin therapy. Interesting. So,
yeah. So LPIR as a measure of insulin resistance is what they're telling you, right?
Yes.
How do you know if you're insulin resistant? You can go measure your LPIR. Again, I think it's an expensive test, but you can once again look at your lipid profile within the context of all the lipoproteins and not just LDL cholesterol.
Yes. And what's interesting is that was associated with incident diabetes both in the presence and absence of statin therapy. So you could either be taking statins or not taking statins. LPIR still was associated with diabetes, right? So you cannot use statins to kind of cure or improve your LPIR score. Right?
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, so here scrolling up to the right. In the present study, the LPIR score had a greater association with CHD occurring in women younger ages and up to 75 than all other biomarkers measures, including hemoglobin A1C, LDL cholesterol, non-HDL cholesterol. The LPIR score potentially links insulin resistance and its concomitant atherogenic dyslipidemia with future risk of both diabetes and premature CHD. This role requires further investigation, especially because the risk of LPIR has minimally attenuated after further adjustment for prevalent diabetes. So they're really highlighting that insulin resistance is a problem, and the power of the LPIR score is a really good indicator, much better indicator than hemoglobin A1C, LDL cholesterol, non-HDL cholesterol. Even if you adjusted for diabetes, LPIR still was a significant risk factor. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah, moving on.
Moving on.
Yeah. In this study, the incident rates of CHD increased with age and were approximately tenfold higher for CHD onset at age 75 years or older versus younger than 55 years, consistent with age being a substantial risk factor. Analysis of the relative rates of risk factors for incident CHD should not, however, imply that risk factors are more important at younger versus older ages. You hear that? I'll read that again. Analysis of the relative rates of risk factors for incident CHD should not, however, imply that risk factors are more important at younger versus older ages. Thus, the importance of primary cardiovascular disease prevention among older women is not diminished by the observed attenuation of relative rates of risk with incident CHD in older individuals. Rather, these results suggest the stronger relative associations of risk factors at younger versus older ages and emphasize the need for improved primary prevention among younger women. Okay, we should have a rewind sound.
Yes.
Did you get that?
Ah.
So, what they're saying here is just because you see the risk factors attenuate as they get older, it should not be that does not suggest that it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? Rather, it suggests that it's actually very, very important to address these risk factors in the younger populations, right? Because there's still risk factors at the older ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just seeing the risk factor decrease as older doesn't mean that those risk factors are more important at being young when you're young. It's just equally important at all ages. Obviously, if you have a coronary heart disease event at a young age, that's going to carry forward in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shame we're seeing all these heart issues arise around the world, right?
Yeah.
Even in athletes.
Very interesting correlation there, you would say.
Yeah. And strengths and limitations. Our study has strengths and limitations. The generalizability of our findings to women younger than 45 years, men, or non-white racial ethnic groups needs further evaluation. Participants' self-reported lifestyle and medical history, which is subject to recall bias. We had limited data on pregnancy complications or vasomotor vasomotor symptoms, which are emerging as important risk factors for CHD. Measurement of other biomarker pathways may also contribute to CHD risk. Our study has strengths, including that it was large, had a prospective design with a robust follow up of pre specified endpoints, incident CHD, and included information on various lifestyle factors and biomarkers. In addition, there are challenges to comparing the risks associated with clinical categorical variables versus continuous biomarkers. Similar issues affect the population attributable risks, which depend on the magnitude of risk association and the prevalence of risk factors in the population. Wow, that's quite a mouthful, as was this whole paper. But basically, they're saying limitations. They could use a more diverse, ethnically diverse population, right? Um, and they're saying that some of the factors were self-reported, so medical history and other histories, like levels of activity and things like that. So that was subject to recall bias. I would still say it's very minimal because, as far as we saw, the most salient risk factors were those that were measured in a clinical context and not necessarily what they self-reported, right? Compare that to your food frequency questionnaire epidemiology, right? That's looking at what people ate over like 20 years. Insanity. Yeah. Strengths, big population, and they had a very well specified endpoint, right? Coronary heart disease. That's all they're looking at. 50 biomarkers, coronary heart disease. Very well defined. Very well defined. They're not trying to see who lives the longest or whatever, right? Who lives the happiest. They're just seeing who got heart attack.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
you have it.
there you have it. There you have it. Conclusion. I mean, it's just basically everything that has been covered. Worry
Yeah.
about diabetes, insulin resistance, being overweight, obese.
Yeah. How to give your woman a heart attack? Give her insulin resistance.
Make her diabetic.
Yeah. Pump her full of sweets and carbs and pasta. Oh, you know how women love pasta. Sugar, sweets, grains.
Yeah.
Pump them full like they're cattle. Give
Yeah.
your woman a heart attack.
Yeah. Get her smoking. And then give her a high LPIR score.
That's right.
And then all of that is more meaningful and more significant than LDL.
Than LDL alone. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So remember, small LDL bad, small HDL bad, high triglycerides bad. Okay, those are clear signs of insulin resistance, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is insulin resistance? It's when you're inefficient with the energy that your body has, right? So it might manifest itself in higher blood glucose when you're carb fueled, higher blood glucose. So that means your body cannot efficiently use that glucose, right? You're uh, insulin insensitive. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't use the glucose properly. So the glucose, it has to it ends up sticking to your tissues and to your cells. It ends up glycating, red blood cells and your lipoproteins. Glycation being a fancy word for basically meaning like the sugar gets stuck, it accumulates, it gets stuck, and it becomes like this sticky syrup. So imagine your arteries, your blood vessels like becoming sugar coated, right? Like candy. That's what happens with diabetics. That's why they have to get their limbs amputated after long enough, right? Toes, feet, even legs.
Yeah.
Horrible. It's
Pretty
because of
horrible.
this glycation, right? High. So that's one measure, right? High blood glucose, and then high triglycerides. High triglycerides. Triglycerides, your body will use them as energy. So
Yeah.
your LDL shuttles triglycerides all around your body. If you're fat adapted, then that's why your LDL goes up, right? Because you need to mobilize that fat, right? It's the little boats, LDL, carrying the fatty acids, energy. You need more energy because you're burning fat. That's why your LDL goes up. It's not because you're at a higher risk. It's because you're now carb adapted and your body is designed to run on fat. Okay. So when you have the high triglycerides, that is a sign of insulin resistance too. Energy inefficiency. There's a surplus of energy that your body just can't use properly. Imagine this. Imagine if you imagine if you like stuck gas tanks on the doors of your car, on the outside of your car. And so you just saw like this car going down the road and it's got like gas tanks on the doors, right? That's inefficient, right? Like why would you be carrying around all this excess energy when your car already has a gas tank that you can fill up with the right amount to get you however many 100 miles, right? I guess that's a poor analogy, but you get what I'm saying. Energy inefficiency is the issue here. Insulin resistance, that's what it means. What do we know works to fix this issue? Minimizing your carbohydrate intake. Carbohydrates from grains, from sugar. Yes, even natural carbohydrates, fruits, honey, maple syrup. There's this ongoing narrative lately that diabetics should be consuming maple syrup to fix their diabetes. Guys, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We know what works. We know what caused the issue. This whole blaming linoleic acid and omega-6 fatty acids, well, linoleic acid, omega-6 fatty acids, it's scapegoating what the real issue is. And I don't understand why people are doing this. I don't get it. Yes, linoleic acid is not good, but neither is sugar. Okay. We can all agree on this. The processed foods, high sugar foods, seed oils, refined grains, refined sugar, refined oils. The common pattern is these are food products, these are manufactured foods. They're not natural. The answer is in nature, right?
Yes.
Please stop saying diabetics should be eating maple syrup. Please don't say that.
Yes.
Looking at the disguised rape eaters.
Yeah, they're just here to misinform by misinforming, right?
Yeah.
They just
Here to create confusion.
they're here to create confusion.
Yeah. Our goal is to make nutrition simple. It's simple.
It's pretty simple. Steak and eggs. That's why you made the post about steak and eggs.
Yeah.
What if you just shut off all the noise, turn off the media, turn off the mainstream, and you just had steak and eggs for the rest of your life?
Dude.
Very likely, you'll live a long and healthy life.
Yeah.
Very, very, very likely.
Yeah. I would even wonder what's going to kill you. What would kill you?
What would take you out
If not heart disease?
if not heart disease?
Maybe we all get heart disease at some point. Maybe it takes, maybe instead of taking 80, 90 years to die from heart disease, maybe it takes 150 years. I don't know. We don't have the answers to this yet.
We don't.
No. Yeah, we have some comments from Frank.
Comments from Frank. Impressive that you guys were able to put this together in short notice. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Fatty heart disease.
That's right.
Yes. Steak, eggs, and butter. Yeah. What if you have steak and eggs and butter for the rest of your life and you just turned off the fear? That's what you have to do. Just turn off the fear, have these foods, and that's it.
Yeah, steak, eggs, and butter. Saturated fats. No surprise, guys.
You can't sell supplements if if all your problems go away with like these three foods, right? Obviously, talking about all animal foods.
Yeah.
All animal foods. You can't sell supplements. People wouldn't be motivated to if you take away the fear from people, then who really benefits is the farmers. That's it. What pharma? And that's the problem, right? They have deep pockets, so they can come up with studies. They can manufacture studies, right?
Yeah, they can bribe the agencies. They can bribe the experts, the doctors.
Yeah.
The normal state of humankind is to eventually become corrupt.
Yeah.
Eventually become corrupt. I mean, look at the scandal that was just released. I think like maybe a month or two ago. The what is it? The A&D, the American Nutrition and Dietetics Association.
Oh yeah.
Turns out, big food companies that made deep investments in this association. But not only that, the A&D has investments in these companies. Like they're actually like running their investments, their savings
Mm,
on these companies, these
wow.
food companies, food product companies.
Wow.
Pepsi, Frito-Lay, I think they're the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you get it. Mondelez, Unilever,
Yeah.
P&G,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the big pharma.
All that packaged food.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Disgusting behavior, morally repugnant people.
yeah.
Yeah.
Frank says that's the world I want to live in one day.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
Yeah. Again, you mentioned deep pockets. Man, I would even go as far as to say I wouldn't be surprised if their pockets go so deep they purposefully place health and fitness influencers in social media with the purpose of confusing you. I would even go as far as to make that claim. Of course, that sounds very tinfoil hatty, but hey, listen, if you were these guys, right, and you recognize that this is a risk, what's the best way to retaliate for them? It's to create confusion and divide us, right?
Yeah.
It's more worth it for them to create confusion and divide us than to just silence us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Create chaos
Create
within this
chaos. Yeah.
community,
Yeah.
right? Imagine you're if you're one of these big companies, you're in the know. You know what's healthy, you know what's not.
Yeah. They've known forever.
They've
Guys,
known forever.
humans have been around for a long time. This is not new information.
Yeah.
We just forgot.
Yeah.
We forgot in like one or two generations. Everyone forgot. Look at the result. Look at the actual human outcome data. Look around. We
Yeah.
forgot.
Yeah.
They made us forget.
Yeah.
They make you refuse to believe in your own senses.
Yeah.
They make you question your own sanity.
And they are creating a paradox, right? They so smartly selected LDL, right? Because you see all these people reverting, curing all these long-term chronic diseases, but LDL, always shoots up. So again, not to get to tinfoil hatty, it's like, oh yeah, how do we ensure people remain more confused? Target LDL directly. Right. So obviously, you cannot live in a paradox where you drop all the weight, you cure all these other diseases, and suddenly you are at greater danger of another disease. No, there are no paradoxes. This is something that you need to work on and resolve and accept that you cannot you're not going to live in a paradox.
Yeah, trust your common sense. Trust your intuition.
Yeah.
Trust nature. You are nature.
Yeah.
And if your whole life improves by every single metric except the LDL, you need to reconsider the beliefs, right? Beliefs you've been spoon-fed.
Yeah, basically it's current beliefs. If you check your knowledge, what has been spoon-fed to you and what is something that you have actually earned yourself, right?
Yeah, tie it all together. You look at things like the food pyramid, 6 to 11 servings of grains. Why do we feed cattle when we want to fatten them up? Grains. Why would we expect a different result for humans? By the way, what do farmers feed their livestock to fatten them up besides grains? Talk to a farmer.
Ask your farmer.
Talk to a farmer.
If say infinite resources, exclude grains, what would you feed your cattle to make them fat?
Yeah. And then you'll have firsthand testimony from someone who, you know, does this on a daily basis, works with their hands, knows from firsthand experience what is true and what is not true. They'll tell you what they feed their livestock to fatten them up. And then you'll know. And this is the best form of evidence, in my opinion. Direct observation.
Direct observation.
yeah.
Use your power of observation.
Not what some media outlet is gonna broadcast under misleading headlines. Not what the health agency is gonna report. What they're gonna establish is a scientific consensus. So then all these doctors who take on the debt, go to school for like 10 years, basically get indoctrinated. It's a shame. It's a shame. Because they might mean well, but you might mean well when you're coming in. But man, I remember meeting some pre-med students when I was in school. All they would talk about is med school. They were annoying. Annoying people. Early signs of indoctrination. When your whole personality is built on what med school you're going to go to after you finish your 4 years of pre-med.
Wow, yeah. That's true. That's probably not an interesting person of
That's first-hand experience from me. I mean, I took classes in organic chemistry and many other things. I was in labs with pre-med students, and that's what they're like, guys. It's hyper competitive. My God, Trevor's watching.
shout out to Trevor.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, man. Yeah. Long story short, LPIR, insulin resistance, bad. Obesity, diabetes the worst.
Diabetes
10
the
times
worst.
worse.
I mean, I can put it up here. Literally, all these categories are worse than LDL. If I could highlight it, there we go. All
Yeah.
these categories are worse than LDL. Overweight, obese, smoker, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, hypertension, physical inactivity, and having your parents have a heart attack if they are less than 60. Right? All of these,
Your genes.
your genes. Here's LDL. This is the risk for LDL.
Yeah.
Risk for these other biomarkers.
Yeah. And again, this is just one study. It's observational,
It's one study.
but the real value here is when they put it all next to each other. Right?
Yeah.
So take that, look at that, and see what your intuition tells you, right?
Yeah.
Because some experts going to come along and say, well, the meta-analyses, the Mendelian randomization trials, oh my God, show that LDL is an independent risk factor
Yeah,
for
it's
heart
just-
disease.
it's taking statistics to a whole nother level.
Yeah, we'll have to dive into that at some other point.
Yeah.
Because, well, if you've heard, again, I don't know, you might be new to this, you might not be new, but there's a whole world out there just set out to confuse you.
Yeah.
And whenever you hear Mendelian randomization trials, just think, you can torture that data as much as you want to reveal what you want it to reveal.
Yes. Did you want to talk about?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Address LPIR. So, you've heard LPIR. What is lipoprotein insulin resistance? So it's a novel marker. I believe that's how the study describes it. Novel. It's a profile that is comprised of 6 different markers, right? So they look at the size and concentration across the 3 lipoproteins, VLDL, HDL, and LDL. So in this graphic, they call it VLDL. In the study, they were referring to it as TRL, triglyceride-rich lipoprotein, right? But there you go. What makes a high LPIR score? So, big VLDL, um, what
Mhm.
is that? Big VLDL, a large concentration of VLDL. So big, big VLDL, high number of VLDL, uh, small HDL, a low number of HDL. Okay, consistent again. Small LDL, and a high number of small LDL. There you go.
There you
It's kind of a mouthful, but think about it. Let that ruminate in your brain a little bit. It'll make sense. It'll make sense. And then we can, just so you can understand a little bit about lipoprotein metabolism. Again, this is the study club. It's a very technical presentation. There you go. We have the liver and we have the cycle of the VLDL all the way to LDL. So again, remember the metaphor, the analogy is LDL is this little boat that transports things. Okay. But the full story of that is that it's a boat that shrinks in size. So it actually starts as very large, uh, very large. No, what is it? Very large, low density lipoprotein, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, very large, low density lipoprotein. As it goes around the body, it's dropping off the payload. It's starting to become smaller and smaller. So it becomes an uh,
Idea.
intermediate density lipoprotein
Mhm.
and low density lipoprotein,
Yeah.
right?
And then it goes back to the liver.
Yeah, exactly. And then it goes back to the liver. See, and
That's the main cycle.
yeah, that's the main cycle. The problem is when the lipoprotein becomes damaged, it doesn't get recognized by the liver, so the liver cannot uptake it anymore. So it just stays in your bloodstream, right? So now you see why. So it becomes damaged and it becomes small, dense LDL. It's no longer recognizable by your body because it's been modified by something that does not belong in your body, right? So that explains why you see the small, dense LDL, small LDL size and high number of small LDL is problematic, right? Because that's a sign of a damaged lipoprotein metabolism. What causes that? High blood sugar, seed oils, smoking, oxidative species in your bloodstream, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, VLDL goes all the way to LDL, and then HDL is kind of like its own thing. It's on its own path. It's doing its own thing. So the LDL delivers the payload across the body. The HDL is in charge of returning the payload to the liver, pretty much, right? So
Yeah.
HDL is going around picking stuff up and it brings it back to your liver. LDL delivers from the liver to the rest of your body. Does that make sense?
There you go.
Yeah. And then, you'll see on the diagram also ApoB 100. So depending on how well versed you are on the anti-LDL rhetoric narrative, you see people mentioning like, oh, ApoB this, ApoB that. ApoB is associated with, increased risk for cardiovascular disease. That's just basically another scapegoat for LDL. If you look at this diagram, and this is true, um, ApoB is present in LDL in its very low density lipoprotein form, in its VLDL form, all the way to the small dense LDL form, right? So remember, this is the same boat that is shrinking in size as it delivers its payload, and they all have ApoB 100. What is ApoB 100? It's the receptor. It's like the key card that allows the LDL to be taken in by the liver. It's like the library access card, right? It's like the fob. You go, boom, bump it into the fob, into the receiver, boom, door opens, you go in. When the ApoB 100 becomes damaged, your liver won't recognize it anymore. That's exactly the mechanism by which oxidative species damage the LDL.
Yeah.
So a lot of information there. Again, check out the cholesterol highlights. We have experts explaining this to you. People like Dave Feldman, Paul Mason. If you'd like to learn more, definitely check out their lectures.
Yeah. Whew. All right.
All right, I'm hungry. I'm about to go eat a lot of saturated fat and beef.
Yes. We're
Yeah.
gonna go eat some ground beef
Yeah.
and do some sit-ups.
Do some sit-ups. That's right. If you haven't joined our Discord, go join our Discord. Why are you not in our Discord? All our members are getting stronger every single day, and they're not worried about their LDL because, well, they don't listen to us because we're not medical experts. Always trust your doctor. But if you ever have any questions, hit us up over there on the Discord. If you try to DM us on Instagram, we may not see your message because we get too many messages. We get death threats.
Some people are not nice to us.
Yeah. But make sure you like, subscribe, share this with your friends. Stay tuned for future episodes. Turn on notifications. Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter. We're everywhere. We're taking over. Don't forget to leave a comment for the love.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.